How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from WeatherSponge 5000. As today, we're going to take a look at our next potential winter storms that are expected to impact the eastern portion of the United States. We have this first one that's expected to happen within the next 6 to 12 hours now, where we're going to begin to see the snowfall develop right around the Texas area thanks to an enhanced amount of instability that is expected thanks to a very strong northerly flow that's bringing that cold air very far south, so far south that it's getting to historic proportions of how cold it'll be in the southeast, as well as how much snowfall we'll exactly see from this storm system as well. So this is definitely something we're gonna pay close attention to over the next 24 hours. At this point, both of the computer models are in high agreement regarding the exact trajectory of this storm system, as well as the exact area of where the snowfall will accumulate. So if you're under a winter storm warning, or if you're forecasted to receive snowfall accumulation from this storm system, you need to prepare accordingly in the southeast, because it's almost guaranteed to happen at this point when we have certainty this high between the most reliable computer models. But we also have the possibility of another winter storm that could move through the Ohio River Valley as well as the Northeast in the more long-term future by the time we approach next week, thanks to an enhanced amount of instability that's expected. As of right now, the European model isn't developing necessarily anything significant out of this area of instability. We do see some snow showers move through the Ohio River Valley as well as the mid-Atlantic, but it's definitely not bringing anything more than an inch in a scenario like this, where the area of snowfall is just very small, and too small to really produce a significant amount of snow. But it's another story when we take a look at the GFS model, because the GFS model at the same time period does bring quite a significant winter storm, especially right over the Ohio River Valley. So cities like Cincinnati, Louisville, into Pittsburgh, you guys all get involved with heavy accumulating snowfall in a scenario like this. And this even extends into the Northeast as well, where New England gets involved. Boston, Hartford, New York City get involved with accumulating snowfall in a scenario like this. So taking a look at the forecast hour, of course, this is very far out. There's still a lot that could change with this specific forecast, especially when we have both the GFS and the European model disagreeing with each other regarding the exact extent of how large that snow area will be and how heavy that area of snow will be. So it's definitely good to pay close attention to computer models over the next few days to really determine if there's going to be a higher amount of certainty regarding the possibility of this snowstorm. I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days, but the key thing that'll determine whether or not we see a more significant winter storm or not is how much ridging there is just to the south of this low pressure system. The more ridging there is, the more instability there will be over the Ohio River Valley as well as the Northeast for enough lift to occur for a larger area of precipitation to develop out of that instability. While in the European model scenario, the instability isn't necessarily strong enough because it expects a weaker amount of ridging. If we were to take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly between the two computer models, you're going to clearly see that there isn't enough of that warm air or enough ridging in the southeast to induce a more unstable environment for enough lift to occur in the atmosphere, for enough condensation to occur, and to develop more of a larger area of precipitation. In the GFS model scenario, we see quite a bit of ridging, especially right over the United States. This is what would be required for a winter storm to develop. But in the European model scenario, we see that the ridging is definitely more limited. And if we were to take a look at the 12Z run, because this gives a more long-term outlook. So if we were to take a quick look at that at around the same forecast hour, the key difference with the European model is that the ridging is further out to sea, which means that the instability area will be out to sea as well. So it'll be a little bit too cold with not enough warm air to induce enough lift in the atmosphere for a significant winter storm to develop. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated. We're definitely going to need to pay close attention to the strength of this ridge, which will be determined by our next potential snowstorm by the time we approach the Saturday time frame, or at least this specific low pressure system. I shouldn't say snowstorm, but this specific low pressure system could be key in determining the strength of this ridge. And I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next several days once you get a better indication of how it's going to be, as it's still a bit too early to say how strong this ridge will be, and it will be determined by exactly the strength of these low pressure systems. Of course, when we have a stronger amount of lower pressures surrounding areas of higher pressure, that typically leads to the ridging being stronger when the low pressure systems are stronger surrounding it, because a stronger low pressure system creates a more divergent environment in the upper levels and a more convergent environment right over the ridge, which creates a stronger sinking motion when we see a stronger low pressure system that's forcing more air up and forcing more divergence in the upper levels. So the strength of this low pressure system will be key, so definitely stay tuned for that over the next several days. You won't really get a good idea, I'll say, until the Thursday time frame, once we really see this low pressure system enter the southeast. That's when we'll get a good idea of the strength of this low pressure system, which could help determine the strength of this ridge. And I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days. And of course, with a forecast hour that's this far out, there's also still that possibility that maybe this ridge ends up being even too strong to a point where this snowfall would move a little bit too far north to affect the Ohio River Valley and Northeast. When we're talking about a forecast hour this far out, we can't necessarily rule out any possibility just yet. I do believe that we will see at least some instability right over this area, but it's hard to say as of right now if that'll eventually lead to a significant winter storm for those areas. So definitely stay tuned for more updates as we get a little bit more information regarding this snowstorm. So let's say the GFS model was completely correct when it comes to its snowfall accumulation forecast for our next potential winter storm for the Northeast and Midwest. We see that this would bring a significant amount of snow right over Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and into Louisville, Kentucky. We'd easily be talking about anywhere between 4 to 8 inches of snowfall, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility that could be more if we do see more instability than expected, which certainly is in the realm of possibilities as well. And we see that this snowfall would extend into the Northeast as well, where it'll be less snowfall, but it'll still bring anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. So you definitely want to keep that possibility in mind by the time we approach right around the January 27th time frame on a Monday. So definitely pay very close attention to this over the next few days, right over the Northeast and the Midwest. It's too early to start panicking just yet. But it's at least definitely something you want to keep a tab on over the next few days. Next, let's talk about the southeast snowstorm that's expected to impact the southeast within the next 24 hours at this point. So right now we're at that period where there's a decent amount of instability right over Texas. And taking a quick look at both of the two most reliable computer models, I don't really need to show you this or go very in detail with this forecast at this point because it's highly certain at this point. The GFS model and the European model are nearly almost identical when it comes to the exact area of where the snowfall will be and who it'll exactly affect. So at this point, there isn't really much to analyze when it comes to who exactly will experience snowfall. Of course, if you're closer to a rain snow line, such as in areas in Florida, that will definitely be a more important forecast to really know the small details, because even if this low pressure system shifts even only 20 miles to the west, you could be talking about a difference between experiencing no snowfall at all to potentially 3 to 5 inches of snowfall right over northern Florida. So you definitely still want to be aware at least of that possibility of snowfall, even if you aren't currently expected to receive snowfall in areas such as maybe Jacksonville, maybe just south of Gainesville, because like I said, if there's a small shift in the forecast, you could easily be involved with accumulating snowfall as well. So don't rule out that possibility in those areas, even if your current forecast suggests that it'll primarily be a rain event in those areas. So definitely keep those small details in mind, but look at the GFS model, bringing that snowfall throughout the southeast, and taking a quick look at the European model. You clearly see that it's a very similar forecast, bringing snowfall to much of the same areas, and a very similar snowfall accumulation forecast between the two as well. Now, taking a look at the warnings all throughout the southeast, we have winter storm warnings over a very large area, pretty much almost encompassing the entire Gulf Coast, which is pretty crazy to see. I've honestly don't remember the last time we've seen winter storm warnings this far south into the Gulf Coast of Florida, into the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, and even bordering as far south as the Texas-Mexico border, as it's been quite a while since I've seen winter storm warnings like this, and in many areas you haven't seen accumulating snowfall in decades. So this should definitely be a first for many people all across the Gulf Coast states. Make sure to prepare accordingly. In the southeast, they typically aren't experienced with snowstorms, even if it's necessarily a low snowfall accumulation type snowstorm. There aren't salt chucks. There aren't chucks that would dig up the snow that far southward. So so even if it's a small amount of snowfall, that still should lead to significant impacts on the roadways, which should make driving very treacherous and dangerous. So make sure to stay indoors unless it's an extreme emergency, because it's going to be very impactful, even if you don't necessarily see the big snow totals that you'd see further up northward. So definitely keep that in mind all throughout the Gulf Coast. Pretty much the entirety of the Interstate 10 corridor is going to get involved with some sort of accumulating snowfall. This is just pretty insane to see, and really goes to show you how cold it's going to be over the United States in general, since we're seeing winter storm warnings as far south as Jacksonville and Gainesville, which is just pretty crazy to see. So here's the current snowfall accumulation forecast for the Gulf Coast states, as it's also pretty insane to look at that. The southernmost points of Louisiana are expected to receive 5 to 8 inches of snowfall, which is just insane, as that will definitely make travel very dangerous, and that's going to be historic for a lot of these areas where we could see record-breaking snowfall in portions of Louisiana thanks to this storm. And we're also going to see that snow extend into the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, into Alabama, as well as the Panhandle of Florida, where in places like Pensacola, you should experience 3 to 5 inches of snowfall. Same goes for southern Georgia. Much of southern Alabama and Mississippi, you should experience 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. But like I said, since these areas aren't used to that much snowfall in any given winter, that's definitely gonna feel like a lot more relative to the southeast. So you definitely want to prepare for that. Houston, you should expect 3 to 5 inches of snowfall, and then watch out also for that possibility into South Carolina of accumulating snowfall, as you could experience 3 to 5 to 1 to 3 inches of snow. So now let's go hour by hour when it comes to the Futurecast radar. So at around 1 a.m., which is only a couple hours from now, we're going to begin to see the snowfall develop right over Texas, at instability really enhance. And then by really around the morning time, 7 a.m., this is where we should see quite a bit of heavy snowfall right over Houston, and make sure to watch out for that possibility of ice accumulation as well by the time we approach our early morning time on Tuesday. And then by 10 a.m., that snowfall and ice will extend into Louisiana at this point, and then it should last up until potentially the late afternoon to early evening in Louisiana, and that's when we should see the snowfall approach Alabama and Mississippi by right around the noon time. Should be heavy at times as well, and then we should see that snowfall approach the Panhandle of Florida by the time we approach 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And same goes for Georgia and South Carolina. So definitely prepare in a lot of these areas. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.